We are live back with our last episode of Your Wildest Fantasy Football Show for the 2021 season.
True.
Little voice crack there for you. That was obviously planned.
It was.
Just to give you guys a little bit of spice, a little something extra. It's the last show. We have to go out with a bang. And nothing says bang more than a little voice crack.
That's true. Firecrackers are a close second.
Fair.
Yeah.
Is this an emotional day for you, Cody? As emotional of a day as it is for me?
So I've given birth personally to 16 and a half kids. And each one of those days I've teared up, but I've never cried more than I did this morning, thinking about how this is the last show of the season.
Yeah, I don't want to ask about the half kid just because I feel like that might be
It's a
touchy subject, but very emotional day, I think, for both of us. Probably for, I know, the Second Take Extra, at least one serial killer, and JKin 49 or 49 as well. Right. Don't want to leave anybody out. Brendan. It's an emotional day for all of us, I'm sure. But, together, I think, is the only way that we can all get through it.
I think so.
So in a moment like this, it's really nice to have your friends. There's currently nobody watching, so
don't need them.
I'd kind of disagree with you there.
No, we do.
That is the point of this show, is helping other people with their fantasy questions. Not sure how many fantasy questions are out there today because it is week 18. We both are big anti-week 18 fantasy championship guys, but I know I am in a couple week 18 fantasy championships or championship week leagues, and there's a lot of matchups still going. So if you have any start-sit questions, if you have any questions whatsoever, this is a pretty empty show, I would say. Like, we don't have much planned to talk about. So feel free to ask any or all questions relating to fantasy football or not, just topics you want us to cover today. And we will probably get to it because I have a feeling that there's not going to be much that we need to talk about within the realm of fantasy football too much. There are a couple of things to get to, mostly being who's in and who's out for the day. There are some big names that will not be playing, as to be expected. Lamar Jackson is out with an ankle injury. Tyler Huntley is going to start in his place against Pittsburgh. He would be an interesting play, seeing how that Pittsburgh front is playing, but the secondary has not necessarily been the best or played up to expectation this season. Tyler Huntley might be a guy that some people are looking at in their fantasy championships.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley's not a bad choice. He's gotten better throughout the season. Obviously, the game that he got to play, he's looked good. And so if you are unfortunate and have to play week 18, good luck. Tyler Huntley could be your saving grace, though.
Yeah, he would definitely be within my top 12 guys. I mean, there's some people ahead of him on the Fantasy Pros rankings, seeing their rankings. Like, I'm putting him ahead of Carson Wentz. I'm probably putting him ahead of Ryan Tannehill. I kind of have him in the same conversation as Russ, to be honest. The matchup is the only thing that kind of like scares you, just because of that expectation of that Pittsburgh defense and what it has been in the past, but it's certainly not been up to par with the past defenses they've had, which could very well be one of the several contributing factors to them not likely to make the playoffs this year. Have they been officially eliminated? I don't think so.
Pittsburgh is not officially eliminated yet. Pittsburgh is 9th right now, but they have this.
They still have a chance, like, if everyone else loses.
Right. Indy has to lose, Chargers and Raiders all have to lose and they have to win, and somehow they got it. Um, Indy, I think, is going to secure the last playoff spot there for the AFC just because they have, what could be considered by most people to be the easier game of the four.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Indy matchup. Obviously, I think that's to anybody who has not watched the show before. I am a Colts fan. I feel like that's a topic that gets covered a good bit on the show. So we'd be remiss not to talk about the Indy matchup with probably plenty of time left in the show. But we will cover the fantasy stuff right now. Justin Fields, not expected to play. Andy Dalton is going to start. That is already set in stone. I think Justin Fields, I don't know if it's like Justin Fields in general or if it's how Matt Nagy plans the offense, but the offense seems to be a little bit better, at least throwing the ball, moving the ball, scoring points when Justin Fields is not out there. That's unfortunately the truth. Even for myself, who does believe that Justin Fields still has a chance to be the franchise quarterback of the Bears. But if you have a guy like a Darnell Mooney or Cole Kmet or these other guys that are the pass catchers there, you're certainly feeling better about them with Andy Dalton in as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't held any punches in regard to quarterback play this year. Andy Dalton looks like an actual NFL quarterback. Justin Fields has not looked that way. Call it as I see it. Minnesota is a banged up defense. Minnesota's my team, but I mean, we have not been healthy for a snap this season. So it's been tough to watch. So Andy Dalton should have a nice, easy day back there. I wouldn't start him at QB just because there are so many other guys who are going to be better. But Mooney, Kmet, interesting plays this week.
Yeah, it's certainly, I think even David Montgomery, because you know they're going to be moving the ball more, and that gives him a better chance of scoring a touchdown. So I think that whole offense receives a little bit of a boost. You're not starting Andy Dalton, but you might be more confident in the options around him.
You can now start people on that team besides Dave Montgomery.
Or Cole Kmet. I think you could still throw Cole Kmet out there, like even with Justin Fields, and feel okay about it if you're streaming tight ends. But it's, definitely a big boost for Mooney, I would say. Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon out for the Bengals. I think for me, the bigger story is what does this do for the receivers? Not necessarily even just because they have Brandon Allen throwing to them, but do we even expect some of these guys, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, even Tyler Boyd, to play the whole game?
I don't think it's – I think they're going to go out there for a couple snaps, like maybe a couple of drives at most. Cleveland's already been eliminated this game. Cincinnati has clinched their spot. They're not going to go anywhere if they lose. They're fine. I could see them as just going out there, testing the waters a little bit, making sure they have a couple plays down that they want to see on some games film. But I don't think the starters are going to be out there for that long today. So,
yeah, I agree. It's tough. And that's why we advise against playing your fantasy championships in week 18, because I don't know that I would feel great about starting Jamar Chase, and any other week I would probably have a different answer for that.
Jamar
Same
Chase
thing with T. Higgins.
Even the Chiefs. I mean, Chiefs, Titans, Cincinnati, they have all clinched the AFC spots. Green Bay and Tampa Bay and Dallas clinched there. So, I mean,
it depends on seeding for some of these teams, but
Rams, Rams, Arizona, Philly, they're still fighting. and then Buffalo, New England, still fighting.
Well, Philly was set. Philly was going to be in the wild card either way, and they were going to be. I'm not sure actually what seat they were going to be, but they sat everybody yesterday. And we still saw a little bit of fight out of them, which is an interesting angle that I think people could take on this game, saying, well, we saw how the Eagles did with Gardner Minshew, and could Brandon Allen give that kind of value for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? I would say no, even if they were to play the full game, and I'm not sure that they're going to play the full game. So I would definitely say try to look elsewhere if you can. On the other side of the coin, you have Kareem Hunt questionable. Obviously, Baker Mayfield is out. David Njoku is questionable. I would probably start Kareem Hunt if he plays. Like, I don't know how your team looks, but I don't think he's a guy that I would be super scared off of, just because Cincinnati is sitting so many guys. And even like DJ Reader, who is a big stud inside for them.
Mhm.
So I expect the Browns to be the better team in this game and to run the ball effectively. They're going to have to with Baker out. We saw Case Keenum play, and Case Keenum played fine, but he still wasn't like throwing for 300 yards. So I think that Kareem Hunt, if he plays and if he gets snaps, like, I don't know that he's a guarantee to be active today, and we'll find that out. But if he is, I'd probably put him in like a top 30, as a top 30 running back this week.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, so it just came out. Kareem Hunt is inactive for Sunday's game against the Bengals.
There we go.
Just came out as kind of talking. So, I mean, that answers the question. Do you start Kareem Hunt? No.
No.
You can if you want to.
It's one less thing to worry about, I suppose.
Exactly.
Do you start or consider playing Dearness Johnson? I think like that. I mean, that might be like a deeper league question, because
it's got to be a deeper league, because I mean, I feel like the only people who are really playing week 18 are either like the playoff, like, your championship game here, or maybe you're fighting to not get last place, but I don't think that's really rare, or I think that's kind of rare. So I don't think if you made it to the number 1 or 2 spot in your league here, I don't think you have to worry about picking up Dearness Johnson. So I'm not gonna pick him up.
It's interesting again because, like we said, Cleveland doesn't really have that much to play for. Chubb has been dealing with some stuff. He seems ready to go, but will they play him the full game? We'll see. That's kind of the struggle that we come into with a lot of teams in this part of the season. Jared Goff is expected to play. I don't really think that changes much for the Lions. You're starting Amon-Ra because Amon-Ra's a beast. Like,
Amon-Ra's a tear. But yeah, no one. I don't know if you're super pumped about anyone else on the Lions today.
Aaron Jones is inactive. They do expect the quotes coming out of Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying we do want our guys to play. They don't want them to have basically 3 weeks of just doing nothing.
Right.
That was the quote from head coach Matt LaFleur. But I wouldn't be surprised if they got a little bit of a lead. They are playing the Lions, get up like 14 points, and then say, okay, backups take over here. I do think that could potentially be a good thing for A.J. Dillon, matchup-wise, and I don't know that he would get completely pulled.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be one of the guys that I'd be looking at if I was in this situation where I had to play a Green Bay guy.
Right. I'm with you there. I don't know how many people are really going to be starting people this week. I mean, to be honest, I think it's really just going to be those kind of teams that are already set and forget it. Week 18 is just so full of people who you have no. It's the equivalent of the Zeke versus Pollard debate all year. I mean, this year Zeke was getting banged up almost every single game, missing drives. Pollard would come in, do some work for you. I think this is what's going to, happen today. I think it's just going to really be starters go in for a little bit for the teams that, have kind of clinched their spot. They're going to go in for a little bit, get some, in-game feel, and then hop out to avoid some serious injuries unless you're on Pittsburgh's team. We've seen that they just don't care about their star players, i.e. Dearness Johnson going down early just because of a last second. I said that. Did I? No, I didn't. I might have said Dearness. Anywho, the big, tall guy who catches balls and is the best player on their team, going out there and getting hurt. So I think some coaches are smarter than others when it comes to that. And I think if you're in the playoffs, you're probably a smart coach. Just looking at the teams that are in there. Tennessee, I think, finessed the whole system this year, absolutely killed it. But I think, I don't know, I can't see too many surprise guys coming in this week.
I do think there are a lot of the teams that we covered are teams that are not going to play the starters, but I don't think that there's a ton of teams that are going to sit guys early. Like you look at Indy, I think that they're going to play all of their guys for the whole game.
Indy has to. They haven't clinched it yet.
You look at the Titans, I think they're a team that's going to play all their guys.
They clinched it though. They clinched the.
They haven't clinched the number 1 seed though.
They clinched the division.
Yeah, but if they win today against Houston, now they could get up like 28-0 and then sit their guys. But they're fighting for that number 1 seed. They're fighting for that bye week. So
they're a game behind Kansas City.
They're half game behind Kansas City, but if they win, they clinch the number 1 seed. Because Kansas City played yesterday.
Oh, yep.
The Bengals.
Tennessee's playing the Titans or Texans.
Yes. That's what I was saying. If they get a big lead. Now, Tennessee did lose to the Texans earlier in the year. So that kind of leads some intrigue here. I think everyone's expecting them to win this time around, but still a situation where they're going to have to play so they don't have to face a team like the Colts, the Chargers, or the Raiders, or the Steelers or Ravens, even potentially in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Much easier to beat the Texans than any of those teams, I would say.
Oh, probably. Probably. And I mean, but is there really that many people on the Titans that you think are on playoff or on championship rosters? I mean, Julio hasn't been playing.
Yeah, maybe AJ Brown.
AJ Brown would be a bench guy for a lot of teams. Just
I think
playing well.
It might be more in the conversation of your third place matchups. I know that those are valuable in a lot of leagues. Like you get your money back or you get a little bit of money if you take third place. Mm-hmm. And then there's the people in the basement too. Like AJ Brown is not a guy that I would be worried about playing today. I would actually be pretty confident in AJ Brown today. As well as like a Deontay Foreman and guys like that. Although I don't know if they would rest Deontay Foreman.
I don't think they're going to rest Deontay Foreman just because I think they get Derrick Henry back.
Yeah.
What is it, like the first round of the playoffs? Like I think Derrick Henry.
They're hoping to.
Yeah, I think he could come back next week. Or this week, I guess, technically. So I don't think they're going to rest Deontay Foreman or Hillard. I can't see him doing it. I think it'd be kind of crazy if they did.
No, they're going to, I expect everyone to be out there. Bengals are obviously sitting a lot of guys.
Yep.
The Bills are expected to play everybody, like, I think it makes sense if the Bengals are just willing to give you the 3rd seed. Sure, like, you take that. I also don't know the implications of if the Titans lose, where the Bills wind up. So they have a chance to move around a little bit, especially playing the Jets. They haven't really looked completely right
Mm-hmm.
like this whole season. So and they're playing for the division as far as between the Patriots and them. So, like, obviously some implications there. On the NFC side, the Packers, the Rams are battling for seeding with the Buccaneers, which is why we expect both of those guys to compete and be out there for most of the game. So, like, it's really just Green Bay there. I think there are a lot of teams that are going to be playing their guys this week. So not like a ton to worry about there. More so just like the Cowboys yesterday, if they score 50 points
Mm-hmm.
or if they score like 30 points in the first half, they might sit some people in the second half.
Right.
But that's a given most weeks.
Right. I think this week's going to be a weird thing where we're going to see a bunch of teams just drop 30 to 40 points and have a bunch of scrubs out there you haven't heard of, and then some star players are also going to be out there. Cincinnati is tied for the best conference record along with New England with 8-3. So I don't know how much that weighs into it.
I think it's head to head, and then I believe it is conference record. So
because if they lose, they would still have a better conference record than Buffalo. New England is tied with them, obviously, but even if
I believe it's divisional record, actually.
Divisional is 4-1, so all of them are.
Yeah.
New England has the worst one in that. New England has to win their game. Or is their game even divisional this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
They play Miami.
Oh, yeah, that would be divisional. Miami's killing it in division.
That's going to be a sneaky game. That's going to be a tough one. Obviously, Patriots lost to Miami in week 1 of the season as well. I think there's a lot of sneaky games on the slate. A lot of people giving the Chargers like confidence in them to beat the Raiders in that win-in game. I am kind of like expecting the Raiders. I'm going to be honest.
Raiders have gotten super lucky because their point differential is -68 and they have 9 wins.
I just don't know that the Chargers are very far from the most consistent football team in the race right now. And like, you never know what Chargers team you're going to get. I believe that they're a lot more talented than the Raiders or than most teams in the NFL. They're one of the more talented teams in the NFL right now, I would say, out of everyone. But you just don't know what you're going to get week to week. And I do get worried about that on the road in a matchup where everything's on the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's, Justin Herbert's sophomore season. He's carried this team to a 9-7 performance.
I don't know that he's carried the team, though. I think that you look at that team, like the weapons they have. Austin Eckler, I think, is one of the best running backs in the league. You got Keenan Allen. You got Mike Williams, who a lot of people want to give Mike Williams crap. I think he's like, in fantasy, he had some letdown weeks, but I think he's a good wide receiver. You got a ton of studs like a couple studs on that defense.
I mean, Justin Herbert's thrown for Justin Herbert's thrown for 4,600 yards. Austin Eckler's only ran for 800.
Yeah, but how much has he got in the receiving game?
I think 600. So, I mean, 1,400 yards is still less than some running backs are getting just on the ground by himself. Keenan Allen is their leading receiver.
Eckler missed one.
Eckler has played 15 games.
Oh, I think Eckler's
I
been
think
one of the best running backs in the NFL. I don't think that's like
crazy. He's very good. I just think that Herbert's obviously carried. If you've almost thrown for 5,000 yards and you have your leading receiver with 1,086, then I think throwing for almost 5,000 yards your sophomore season would justify a carry-worthy debate just because your lead running back has 800 yards.
I don't know. I
He's
think the
ran
guys that like carry the
300
team,
himself.
when you think of a quarterback that carries the team, who do you think of? Because I think of like Josh Allen. Just Josh Allen does everything for that offense. I think of late down the stretch, like trying to carry the team, like Kyler. I don't Lamar Jackson. Like I think that those are the guys that I think. I feel like Herbert's team is like just good. I love Justin Herbert. I think that he's one of
Mhm.
definitely a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And he's had an awesome season. 35 touchdowns is nothing to shake a stick at. But I just feel like they have a lot of talent there.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert's thrown more or has more passing yards this season than Josh Allen.
Yep.
Josh Allen just also runs the ball. He ran the ball 117 times this year. I mean,
And you
he
watch that team, like the whole offense is through him.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert has fourth most passing yards in the NFL. Tom Brady, Patty Mahomes, Matt Stafford are only people beating him right now. He's beating all these stacked teams of Joe Burrow with 4, 5 amazing weapons out there. Dak with all of his weapons.
But
Josh
I mean,
Allen,
you could
Aaron
say the same
Rodgers.
thing for, I mean,
Yeah, but
he
I'm just
doesn't have the
I
weapons
said
of Joe
Justin
Burrow or
Herbert.
Dak, but I also don't
mean,
think that those guys carry the team. Like, I don't think Brady carries the team.
I
I
think
think they have a lot
I
of
think
weapons.
Justin Herbert carrying the team this year, being being a sophomore and being able to carry your team with fourth most passing yards in the league. He's not really doing it on the ground, which
That's
I
fair.
get. He's ran 300 yards, but it's still respectable. Like you're still trying out there.
Yeah, I think
I
we just
think
have a different definition of carrying.
I think he. If someone asks me who's the best player on the team, I'm going to say Justin Herbert. I'm not going to say Austin Eckler is a fantastic running back. Love to have Austin Eckler on my team. Love to have Keenan Allen for my wide receiver. But I mean, the kid's got a cannon. I mean, he's accurate, 67 completion percentage. Basically 2 for 3 every single time. Better than Patty and Tom. So
In that regard.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, I appreciate all that he's been able to do this year as a sophomore. So I think as a sophomore, second year in the season, and being one game away from securing the playoff spot for your team, I think that impresses me more than someone who, has been in the league for a while. Let's be honest, some quarterbacks get more calls than other quarterbacks.
But would that affect their stats that much?
I mean, you get more opportunities if there's a roughing the passer on 3rd and 13, and you get another.
I suppose.
Get a
I think
mulligan
that
there.
might be looking into it a little bit too far, I would say.
I think that has to be considered though if you're going to consider it being the carry.
don't
Like
know.
he's not getting the veteran calls. Like is this what
I
it
think
is?
if you're
He's not getting-
considering that, then you have to consider literally everything.
I think. I mean,
And that's like too much thought for, I think, either of us to
I have a
be
lot
able
of
to
thought
put in.
potential. It's a Sunday morning.
Potentially.
Jesus' birthday today.
What
His QBR wasn't even that impressive this year, but it was pretty good.
I mean, I love Justin. Like, if you're starting a team right now
Mhm.
with any quarterback, Justin Herbert is probably, I would say, like my third name off the board behind Patty and Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
I would put him behind. I think Josh Allen, if Josh Allen had a running game, I think he would be so much more effective because he's just literally he's throwing the ball like every play. Like he's either throwing the ball or he's running the ball every single time, and it's just absurd to watch Bills games and just see him do what he does. Like I have a newfound appreciation for Josh Allen even more so than I had going into the draft. Like, I like Josh Allen as a prospect, but he just is the identity of the Buffalo Bills, and
Yeah, I mean,
it's awesome. It's
yeah,
it's wild to just see them say, "Okay, you are the offense. If you want to throw it, throw it. If you want to run it, run it. Just know that no one else is gonna like help you out." Like, I mean, you do have some like decent weapons out there. You got Diggs, who's awesome. Emmanuel Sanders has been a little bit inconsistent. Like Cole Beasley, production wise, been a little bit inconsistent. Like they don't really have a great number two. Dawson Knox is coming on, but like they have nobody running the ball.
I mean, Devin Singletary only has like 60 less rushing yards this season than Austin Eckler. So I mean, if we're considering Austin Eckler,
how many attempts do they have? Well, I think
attempts,
if you're using common sense, you say that Austin Eckler is a better running back than Devin Singletary.
Right, Bumps. Devin Singletary has 169 attempts for 786 yards. And let me pull up what's his face? Austin Eckler has 190 attempts for 847. So 4.5 for Eckler.
Let me pull up.
Very close for Buffalo. I'm just saying Devin Singletary is not like I get it. I'd rather have Austin Eckler.
I don't know that it's even the players. I think it's like the play calling. Like, as a team, I want to look up rushing offense, and I'm pulling up attempts per game and yards per game.
Mm-hmm.
You okay, Sean? I might be wrong.
I can't find
Buffalo is middle of the pack in rushes per game. Now that might include, it's going to be inflated because it's going to be Josh Allen. So I want to see where they rank as far as like rushing yards from the running back, because they're sixth in rushing yards a game. So I could be wrong that they do hand the ball off all the time, but I think that it is a little bit inflated because Josh Allen is
Allen ran the ball
Bill out there. He's a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, Josh Allen ran the ball 117 times to Justin Herbert's 60, so double the attempts for him. I just think for a rookie, or not rookie, sophomore coming in, doing what he's doing. If someone's gonna ask me who is the best sophomore or who had the biggest impact on their team this year, Justin Herbert for sure.
I agree. I think there is an argument now that Joe Burrow is like, you could make the argument for Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow had an amazing season. I think Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow just gets so much love. I just want to throw something.
I feel like Herbert gets a lot of love. Like, I do think it's a lot closer than people say, because I think that people after last year with Herbert were ready to like jump on the train. I can't say enough that I love Justin Herbert. I think it's more of a thing.
You do love Justin Herbert
towards Joe Burrow than anything.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is right behind him in passing yards this year. Joe Burrow is right behind him. Joe Mixon, more rushing yards than Eckler, but only 300 receiving yards, so it kind of evens out a little bit.
And they also, I want to see where the Chargers rank up in rushing yards per game, because they do use, Chargers are 20th in rushing yards per game. So they are not really doing a ton on the ground compared to, I suppose, 19 other NFL teams. But they do use a lot of other backs in that backfield as well.
That was amazing.
I want to get to another topic here. I feel like we pretty much
we have buried Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, and
we've talked all there is to talk about those guys.
So.
Yeah. But I want to talk about Vic Fangio.
I did see that
as the Broncos head coach. That was announced today, and that was just kind of wild to me.
Yeah.
Also, want to say before I get into this, we will stop talking about whatever we're talking about and answer your questions. If you have questions, fantasy questions, start sit questions, any questions for us that don't even have to relate to fantasy.
Anything you want, man.
Yeah. Or ma'am. Vic Fangio out as the Broncos head coach. I think that I'm in the minority here, but I just did not understand it. I mean,
don't understand it.
you see them kind of fight for their head coach against the Chiefs, so I don't think it's a player thing. I don't think he's, like, lost the locker room or anything. I think there is probably, like, a pretty decent culture there, and I don't think he was brought in to fix the offense. Like, that's not what Vic Fangio was qualified to do. Like, if you were looking for somebody to fix the offense from a head coaching perspective, you probably should have hired an offensive-minded head coach.
Right.
You did bring in Pat Shurmur, and maybe you blame Vic Fangio for hiring. He had somebody else in there before that got fired. So maybe you blame him for the hires and saying that the hires were bad, but that's also as much on the GM as
Right.
anything. They did
Right.
bring in a new GM last season, but that GM also brought in like Teddy B, who I do love Teddy B. Like, he seems like an awesome dude and like an awesome leader and an awesome contributor to the locker room, but you don't
Right.
bring him in to fix your offense. Their offensive line has been subpar for long before Vic Fangio got there.
Long while.
Those aren't things that you brought, again, a defensive-minded head coach in to fix. You brought
Right.
him in to elevate your defense, and then you go and trade away in a very good trade, like a smart trade if you're expecting to lose this year,
Right.
and not make the playoffs. You trade away his best defensive player in Von Miller for
Yep.
a second-round pick, which was, again, I think is a smart trade, but you would have to expect to not make the playoffs this year if you're trading away your best defensive player.
Right.
And that defense, even with Von Miller hurt for some of the year and then traded away, was still third in like least points scored against.
Right.
And like the defense seemed to be coming together. The secondary seemed to be coming together. You have a lot of good pieces there, and it seemed to be working. I mean, Pat Mahomes didn't have a monumental day against them. Like, I think 21 points for Pat Mahomes. They scored 28. So they had a defensive touchdown. He's like pretty much holding Pat Mahomes in check.
Yeah.
And like he did that season long. I don't think that it's his fault that, unless you want to make the argument again that the coaching hires as far as like OC and offensive staff were his fault, but like I don't think the players brought in or the coaching staff brought in, one of the two on the offensive side of the ball was like up to par, obviously, because the offensive side of the ball has been the issue. So I think that's wild to just put all of that blame on Vic Fangio, who's still at a 7-10 record this year, which I talked about this earlier with someone else. The 10 really makes it look a lot worse than it is. Like if it was 7-9, it wouldn't look as bad as 7-10, but still, like with a team that I don't think many people expected to be as good as they were this year,
Right.
put up a 7-10 record.
Yeah. I mean, they looked really good against bad teams in the beginning of the year. Until the bye week, they held the Giants 13 points, held Jacksonville 13 points, shut out the Jets. 3 bad teams they did good against. That really helped their numbers. And then they played Baltimore, let up 23. Played Pittsburgh, not even a good team, put up 27 on them. Raiders.
23 is not even that much. I don't think that's like crazy to expect your offense to score 24 points.
I think it's crazy when your offensive coordinator is not getting it done. Then Raiders, not a very good team, filled with controversy this year, put up 34 on them. Then they went back to some bad teams with Cleveland, Washington. They did pretty good against Dallas. I'll give them Dallas. held Dallas to 16 points. That's a game that, you should be able to win with holding your defense to that. Pittsburgh 24. But then the rest, second half of the season, lost Chargers 13 points. Kansas City 16 points. Detroit 10. Cincinnati 15. Raiders 17. And then Chargers 34. Kansas City 22. The last 2 games of the season.
So these are the offensive numbers. I want to make that clear.
Those were defensive numbers. Offensive numbers for their team.
Okay.
This was their defense allowing this many points.
Gotcha.
For each one. I'm with you. I don't think it was the best showing, except for the fact that in the last 4 weeks of the season, they had only one game of a takeaway. They won a whole game against the Chargers without getting a sack. No interceptions, no forced fumbles, nothing. Letting up 34 points. And this is your defensive-minded coach. I mean, and then, when they played the Chiefs this week, they got 1 sack. No interceptions, no fumbles, nothing, just 1 sack. So I think, it might have been the quit at the end. I'm with you that I don't think he should have been fired for a 7-10 season.
It doesn't seem like you're with me.
No, I'm with you. I'm just stating how I'm feeling too, along with it. I mean, I think you need to bring in an offensive coordinator, maybe and even a new quarterback. I mean, Teddy had 3,000 passing yards in 14 games. I mean, granted, 2 less games than some of these other guys, but still 1,600 passing yards less. And then some people are like, oh, Teddy's a ground guy. He'll run it on the ground. He ran the ball 30 times this year. That's it. He ran it half as much as Justin Herbert, who I don't think I would consider the most mobile of the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't consider Teddy a ground guy.
If you're carrying 2 gloves on you, I feel like you would run the ball more than
most people who have gloves on
run the ball.
Right. When they have it in their hands. So I would understand that.
Right. I'm with you. I don't think he should have been fired. I saw this as a surprise. I understand why, if you're only looking at the last 4 games of the season and you really see one good defensive game, and then you kind of looked at him like, oh, he gave up. But
also, how many of those numbers are how much of that is the offense not being able to stay on the field? So the defense is on the field the entire game. How much
but that's also back on
set up the defense in a bad position.
But that is on the head coach to be like, listen, our defense was just out there for 8 minutes. Let up a touchdown. 8 minutes ground and pound on defense takes a lot out of a defense's mentality, out of their physical nature. You have to be, as a head coach, you have to go out there and you have to be like, all right, we're going to do some ground and pound of our own. We're going to do some quick 5-yard outs. We're going to get Teddy.
They did try to do that. I was surprised looking at their numbers, time of possession wise, they were above 50%. And I think that's because in the second half of the season, especially, really the whole season, I would say, they were like, okay, this offense going into the season, I think they knew our offense is not that great. So we have to just run the ball and try to win the time of possession battle and limit the amount of time that the other offense is on the field and hope that we can ground and pound and wear the other offense out or wear the other defense out.
Yeah, for team statistics, they were pretty balanced. Total points a game for the Broncos, 19.7. Opponents, 18.9. Literally 1 point differential, not even.
Yeah. One of those things is good and one of those things is bad.
Right. I think, if you're going to be a defensive coach, I guess underneath 3 touchdowns a game is really good. That's, about 1 a quarter.
It's third in the league.
It's the offense that kind of struggled. So I think it is on the head coach to realize what your strong suit is. If your strong suit is defense, this is his 3rd year there, right? I believe it's his 3rd year there.
Yep.
I feel like at some point you're going to have to sit down, have a real conversation with yourself and be like, I can't do offense. I can understand how to stop offenses. but I can't figure out how to do it. And I think after 3 years, I understand why the higher ups were upset with him. Because after 3 years, you think like you would figure out your mistakes that you're making and your shortcomings of being like, you are a really good defensive coach. Allowing less than 3 touchdowns a game is fantastic. But to score less than 3 touchdowns a game, like if we're saying holding someone to under 3 is fantastic, then we need to score more than 3. And I think to have the points totals be 335 to 322 in favor of the Broncos, that's not enough, I feel like, as a guy who's been there for 3 years to justify it. I'm with you. They got rid of Von Miller. I
It doesn't
really am,
sound like you're with
but
me.
I am with you. Like, I don't think he should have been fired, but I'm understanding why he was fired. I just think like maybe one more year, like 7-10 with all this other stuff
I
going
agree.
on.
Without a quarterback for 3 years.
Like you
Without a
don't have
settled quarterback situation and a subpar, below average defensive line or offensive line, excuse me,
off.
for
Yeah,
3 years.
the defense is your strongest point. You got rid of one of your,
But you also
one,
got rid of potentially the guy who made your defense the strong point of your team. Like, you do have good personnel there, and I don't want to take anything away from them, but, like,
yeah,
Fangio was a sick defensive coordinator before he got there, and, like, he set up that defense. So you're getting rid of the scheme of that. We can see if they bring in someone who does something similar. But I think for me, they're certainly in any of like these gas bag debates.
mhm,
There can be an argument on both sides, and I think that there are smart arguments for Denver getting rid of him. Like, kind of like you said, like, he's still the head coach at the end of the day. He has to take care of the offensive side of the ball, and he has to be
right.
responsible for that. I think where I come in on that is he did potentially learn from his mistakes and being like, okay, we need to run the ball. And that's what they did. And they tried to limit how bad that offense was by
They were
just
better
trying
in the
to
pass game though.
limit the time of possession. Well, I don't know that they would have if they threw the ball like the Bucks did, or like even like most teams just in general do.
I mean, they got more
Um,
passing first downs and rushing first downs. Um, they out
well, that's
first down.
also putting yourself in like that position too, like, right? Like,
Right. You
I
have to put yourself in a good position,
to have
but
rushing first
it's
downs.
all my mind is if you're the head coach, you need to put your team in the best possible chance to win. And
But
at the
you
end of
also
the
have to do that as a GM too, is what
right,
I
right,
my
but the
opinion.
GM's not gonna fire himself. The
That's
GM's
very
not
true.
the GM's not gonna take the blame, Condo. When you're that rich,
Agreed.
you're
Yeah,
not
I'm
gonna be
not
like
saying that.
right.
Maybe alluding to that, I would
Mhm.
suppose, in like
Yeah, I'm with you. The
take
GM has to take fault, but he's not going to, so it
and
isn't
it
a
was
fault
his
on the
first
coach.
year. I think it was,
Right.
and some of the guys that they brought in this year, I think were good towards building what that team and that identity that they had was. I mean, Javonte Williams, I think everybody would say that
Fantastic.
he is very good, and some people are saying that he's better than Najee. I think he was potentially a better value than Najee. I don't know that he's better than Najee, um,
I'm
but he
look
wasn't a first
yeah.
round pick. And I believe they got Miner's a rookie. I believe he's a rookie. They got some guys along that front that are rookies. They obviously got Surtain. It felt like they were building towards the identity that Fangio had, which is this like ground and pound offense, an
Mhm.
offense that can stay afloat. And maybe, just maybe, if they had a quarterback, if they made the trade for Aaron Rodgers in the offseason,
Right.
they wouldn't have to like worry about just staying afloat. That's one of the interesting things about it that Adam Schefter said during the game last night, and I think is potentially very true. Like, a guy that with Aaron Rodgers might have been coach of the year this season, is now
Yeah.
getting fired because you think
Yeah.
about how much, and that's where I say it's not as much his fault because he's not in control of the personnel. Like, I think if they had a quarterback, even like a Kirk Cousins, that could you trust back there. Now, I'm as big of a Drew Lock guy as anybody, but Drew Lock is a young quarterback that I think needs development. And if you're not going to have a guy that you're going to develop, then you probably should get a guy like if you're not going to fix the coaching staff to like get guys that can develop a young quarterback,
Right.
then you have to get a guy who's ready. And I think they tried to do that with Teddy. I just don't think I think Teddy's one of those guys where most things got to be right. Like everything's got to be pretty like set in stone and set up, and the offensive line is not there. So
The
that's
offensive line's not there.
more of my
Interesting. Right.
thing. I think
I'm
like you,
with
like
you.
just give him another year. I'm not saying that Vic Fangio is the best head coach in football or
He's
like
not the best, but I think he deserves. I'm with you. He shouldn't have got fired this year. I understand why he got fired because of all the things that happened behind the stage. Your GM's not going to fire himself. The GM's not going to take the responsibility.
and it was the GM's first year too. So
right.
like
So the GM has to make a power move. I understand all that like politicking that has to go on. One thing I did look up though, Najee Harris being the focal point sort of for the Pittsburgh Steelers, averaged 4 yards a carry, which was crazy good. Javonte Williams averaged 4.4 yards a carry on 200 touches on the ground. So I'm with you, Javonte, or well, maybe not with you because of your love for Najee, because you know hold him so dearly. But Javonte, I think, was a fantastic pickup for this team. I think it's a young focal point for him. But a guy that we've talked about, or I've talked about a lot, Dan Campbell, Detroit guy. He's doing the most with what he's got. I mean, Jared Goff only played 13 games this year, got him over 3,000 passing yards. Not the best, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, only has 800 yards this season, but he's kind of been on a tear this back end, so the numbers are all lopsided on that one. Hawkins Sox only played 12 games this year, so he did the most of what he could have, and so some people are going to be like, why isn't Dan Campbell going to get fired? If 7-10 goes, why doesn't 2-13-1 go? It's because of the difference. Like the Lions were in a lot of these games because of Dan Campbell. And so I think Dan Campbell is kind of where Denver wanted their quarterback or wanted their head coach to be.
Well, there's only one Dan Campbell. I'm sorry to break the news to Denver, but that is unfortunately the truth. Dan Campbell's the best coach in the NFL.
I firmly believe that.
I think he is one of the best coaches. Like, I think that was a great hire. I'm pretty sure everyone right now is saying that. So my argument towards Fangio in that side would be he was 7-10, like with a team that, again, was not expected to go anywhere. So I think he did do the best with what he had.
He did really good with what he had. I think
nobody was expecting that team to be a playoff team.
Right. I think the fact it's his third year there. The pieces around you. I mean, you know what this team is and you know what these players aren't. Dan Campbell shows up and he got these team that has Hawkins Sox, maybe Swift, Williams, but these are some lesser good talents. Amon-Ra St. Brown back end of the season here. He has Jared Goff as his quarterback. Jared Goff's not the ideal quarterback for really anyone here. He's a system quarterback. He's not a playmaking quarterback. So I don't know. I think he did way more despite what the record shows because I think the games were much closer for the Lions.
Yeah, this isn't I was not making this argument trying to throw a comparison between those two because obviously everyone pales in comparison to Dan Campbell. That's just a fact.
Very true.
But yeah, that's kind of our take on the Vic Fangio situation. Tomorrow we'll see a lot of head coaching fallout. I do think Vic Fangio, last thing I want to say on it is he's probably not going to be like a head coach somewhere else. It doesn't seem like it. Like that's just not the vibe that I'm getting.
Not the vibe.
But he's going to be an awesome DC for wherever he goes. I would expect, and I think that he will probably be the top defensive coordinating candidate out there on the market.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what team. I'd have to like really start looking into what team really needs a defensive guy out there.
We'll see what happens in Tampa, like Tampa Bay. You kind of see just like what they've done there defensively. Like you look at some of these, like a Todd Bowles who may move on to a head coaching job. You see just some of these guys who I think might move on. He might be a good fit in one of those places.
Right. Tampa Bay did really good. Held their opponents to 21 points a game. Literal 3 touchdowns. I mean, that would be a good spot for him because I think Tampa Bay's defense has more talented personnel than Denver. So I mean, this could be a blessing in disguise for him. He could go to Tampa Bay potentially,
or Dallas. Dan Quinn's been a hot name in the streets. So there's some places for him to go. I doubt that he will be out there for long. Another
maybe the Jets.
Hopefully not for him. Another name, and it's Bob Saleh's like defense. So I just don't think that he would do that. Like go to a staff with a defensive kind of like oriented head coach. But
they're letting up 29.8 points a game. They need.
Their
need a
team
new defensive minded man.
Their team is just.
They need someone.
Decimated. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? Is there any NFL topic that's pressing you? Before we go, last topic of the year, no pressure.
Last topic of the year, hit Condo up for your spot in next year's Your Wildest Fantasy Football League.
Yeah, I mean, next year's a long ways away. So I don't want to commit and say we're doing. We'll see.
No, we're going to do
one of us may be like. I don't want to throw any bad omens out there, but like, it's a long way till 2022 season. Not actually that long, but probably like seven months till like you get talking about it again.
It's August.
Like, yeah, you talk about fantasy. You start talking like late July, August. Start talking about fantasy football. Like we could do pre-draft rankings and stuff like that, and breaking down like off-season stuff. But if we want to, if we have time to. But yeah, like that's a long time. Like one of us, I don't want to knock on. I do want to knock on wood here, but I don't want to throw anything bad at it. But like one of us, just like it's a icy day out. Like one of us slips on ice,
and then just one more roster spot that's open. Second take extra is going to step up. I mean, he's ready.
I hate these comments. I don't think Sylvan's a real person, but Sylvan,
if you are,
you can fudge off.
You can go suck on a big fudge pop.
Yeah, that you can. I won't stop you. I won't stop you.
Like, is it like a thing you click on?
I think it's like
a virus that infects your
some
computer.
sort of virus.
Yeah. I'm
not a big gives you COVID. I don't want to speculate, but there's a high chance that is potentially the COVID-19 virus.
I believe it probably is. I mean,
imagine being this far into COVID and thinking that like it's a computer virus.
I still don't know what it is. Don't know if it's like I have a weird like pain in my toenail. I don't know if that's
COVID toe.
I think it might be COVID. I'm not entirely sure. Not sure what it is. Yeah, it's been like 3 years, maybe more since COVID came around. Still don't know what it is.
Kingsley Keke is out for Green Bay. Does that change your opinion on anything about Green Bay?
Yeah, Green Bay's gonna lose now.
Okay.
He's a huge part of the day.
What
Green Bay's
position
actually gonna
does
lose by 30.
Kingsley Kiki play?
I'll ask you a better question. What position doesn't the guy play? He's the Taysom Hill of Green Bay.
All right. Yeah. Bet against Green Bay is favored in that game. Might want to
not anymore. Not anymore. Should have put your bets in before.
Yeah. I think unless there's any pressing topics that we need to cover, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think this was a good one.
This was a good one. I mean, we actually did do some like real, again, like gas bag topics, like Stephen A debates. We didn't get like too fired up, but we did some actual topics talking about Vic Fangio.
I do enjoy that.
Head coach.
I enjoy that. I enjoy that part of it.
Talk about Justin Herbert.
Just Herbert. My Karen. I should have used that as one of the categories. Carried candidate of the year.
Sure.
I should have. He would have been my guy.
And mine would have been Josh Allen. So
two very good quarterbacks.
Yes. That is it for us for not only this show, but for the 2021 season. Indeed. We hope that this was enjoyable for you to watch.
Hopefully.
As it was enjoyable for us to make. It was a fun time.
It was.
Getting to meet all you guys and talk to you sometimes 4 days a week, sometimes 2 days a week. But yeah, it was an awesome time.
It was a
Thank
great time.
you for tuning in. If you tuned into like any episode throughout the year, we appreciate you just hanging out with us, being able to bear listening to us. That's a pretty
hardest
cool
part of my
thing.
day.
Yeah, is to get somebody to listen to us. So being able to do this was awesome. And yeah, hopefully we will see you guys back for the 2022 fantasy football season. Best of luck if you have week 18 matchups. And that is pretty much it. Do you have anything to sign off with, Cody?
Just thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting Condos and Mai's, shared baby dream here.
Shared baby dream.